Hello, I'm Benjamin Brown, and this is my final project over from the book When We Fight, We Win, the struggle for economic power. It's from this book right here. It's a great book. Definitely recommend to read it. Okay, the first thing I'm going to talk about is how the wealth is distributed. The wealth of the United States is it's very undistributed, not and over 90%, around 90% of like all of America's wealth is in the 1%, and it could easily be better distributed, but the 1% takes over most of like all of the wealth in America, and it makes the poor and the rich gap just get more wide, and it causes problems for the middle class, the lower class, the lower middle class, the upper middle class, even upper class, poverty line citizens, and definitely affects poverty line and citizens below the poverty line. Makes it just harder for them to get money. And based off of the book, I read that in the United States, the 400 wealthiest people have more wealth than the bottom 50% of households. That's probably what I was trying to say earlier, but I said 90%, and I'm sorry. It's actually 50%. Um, and when we talk about the American dream, like we talked about in class, how some people have like different types of American dreams, and because of this big not getting enough money kind of thing, people their American dream might be wanting to get make enough money to have stable income. And really realistically, everybody wants to come to America, because they want to have the American dream and have the opportunity to better achieve themselves and be a better person. And they don't want to come. Nobody comes to America thinking, oh, I'd like to make money and be able to support my family with. And but realistically, it's sad because even college students see it as I I can't do what I really want to do because I won't get paid enough, so I have to choose a job that's going to be here and choose a job that's reliable enough to keep me going for 10, 20, 30, however long you have that kind of job for. So um so also that the taxes for with the wealth being distributed, like the 1% gets like a lower tax rates than like or lower tax they get lower tax cuts, and like the anybody pretty much below the 1% gets higher tax cuts. I mean, sorry, I apologize. I mean high. I mean lower tax cuts, meaning I may be saying this wrong, but let me re-clarify. Basically, the rich have to pay less taxes, and the poor have to pay more taxes, and it sucks for a lot of people because they don't think it's fair. Even the 1% doesn't think it's fair. Um, Warren Buffett even, and I read this from When We Fight, We Win. It said Warren Buffett stated that, or he observed that the share of taxes that he pays has fallen, while at the same time his secretary continue continue has like higher taxes. And like I said, the gap between the rich and the poor just keeps widening, and it's not a good problem. It's not a good thing to have right now in our society. and that's how the wealth is distributed. And that is a big, serious problem related to the struggle for economic power. Is the power, it seems like it's going more towards the 1% versus the whole like 99 other percent of people that I mean, realistically, I've heard things that people say that there's enough wealth in America that the 1% hold that everybody in the U.S. could get 3 million each if they distributed it equally. But I guess just that's not the way the world is, or at least America is. So corporations. Our next topic is corporations and economic power. Corporations have a huge say-so in power. They can make economic decisions. They can make political decisions. They can support a union strikes, protesters. They can send out their own messages to people. Like lately, there's been a lot of Pepsi commercials because when one of the riots was going on, I think a protester gave a policeman a Pepsi, or I think it's from that famous celebrity, Kylie Jenner. She gave a Pepsi to the SWAT guy that is just there to not let harm happen, and he just kind of like took it for what it was. And so a lot of like big companies like that have been moving in with the society. Um, when it does come to the economy, the 1% does, they have like a lot of money, but corporations also have this big amount of money too, so they can both make, the corporation and 1% can both make big decisions when it comes to the political power and economic power and other size societal issues. And like I was saying, corporations, they can have a role in protesting. They can go out and make a video or make a statement or make a tweet, something to society of where they stand. Same with kind of like celebrities, or celebrities could be compared to corporations. They have their own, like some celebrities have their own clothing line, and they have their own brand and stuff, and they kind of have a biased opinion of certain things. The stock market is a big, like, I don't know if it's a corporation, but I know the New York Stock Exchange could be considered a corporation. Um, they can decide. I've heard, my dad has told me that the stock market can, sometimes they can reveal the result of the election. Obviously, the election we just had in 2016 was a very strange one, so um, the stock market was wrong about the election. I'm not going to say anything else about that topic because that's a very controversial topic. Um, Unions are a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, one of the bad sides of unions is you have to pay a membership fee weekly, monthly, or yearly. Um, I'm personally in a union at my job. I work at a grocery store, and I think it's what I find good out of it is I get like discounts on certain things like movie tickets, stuff like that, food, and or entertainment. And I like that there's like a pension where I'm sure you know what a pension is. You can, it's like a alternative retirement. Um, Unions though, the bad thing about them is if like they went on strike, you would be leaving your job, and you could lose your job, even though you're in the union and you might be able to get it back. It's just like it's a big, um, could be a big mistake to do that, even though that you are using your voice as power. All right, and that's everything on corporations and economic power. definitely corporations definitely have, and they really have a lot of power in the economic societal society. Another thing I wanted to add about unions is that corporations sometimes don't like unions because unions can like sue the corporation if they're not like treating the workers right or something. So sometimes the corporations, when you they have to like follow certain guidelines, so they get kind of mad. Anyway, that's everything about corporations and economic power. Okay. Um, there's a lot of impact on society that this all this economic power can cause. It can cause, just like I was talking about, unions, strikes, protests in the streets, um, organizations, nonprofit organizations, and there are some others. Uh, Protests often happen in the streets, and there's a lot of like SWAT involved, and a lot of organizations. Like it describes in the book that there's the Occupy Wall Street organization was a popular organization that met in New York with tons of different leaders from countries like Brooklyn, Egypt, New York City. I mean, not New York City, Spain, Japan, the Bronx, and many others. They met and they decided that protesting wouldn't be a safe alternative because they didn't want to cause violence and harm, and they didn't want to mess with all that. So they like secretly, not secretly, but they discreetly met in New York City like monthly, and then like they like met in a, I think it was a park or something, and thousands came and stuff. That's how they got their word out. It was created to help solve the problem of the economic struggle happening in New York. These same types of groups, they were not just in New York, they were like all over the US, and or they could have been all over the US, they could have been all over the world, because unequal rights with the workplace is a very popular and controversial issue. Organizations, really all of them, organization, unions, protests, they all can make a big decision, like if something that needs to happen to that company or something that needs to happen in the economic balance of power, then those things can push what needs to be done to make it go like faster. But sometimes the government or whoever's in charge of whoever's running all the economic power, they just ignore all that and they just make their own decisions, which can ultimately either hurt or greatly hurt or greatly benefit the society. And that was that was impact on society. Um, Other impacts I could say out loud that are not on here is over time, when this gap gets just wider and wider and poorer people get poorer and richer people get richer, um, the economic power, it could ultimately change our democracy into like, I'm not I mean it could it's possible that our democracy could be changed into a different form of government, and we could be like, basically, money, they say money is the root of all evil. It is, but at the same time it's not, because um, you have to have it's like you have to have money to live. It's like my dad says, you can't you have no fun. If you have no money, you can't do anything. You pretty much like you don't have to be happy to have money. Money can make you happy, but money can make you sad. Money can make you depressed. But having money is like a necessity now. It's just like having a car. You need a car to get to school, get to where you need to be. What's required for a car? Gas. What's required for gas? Money. You need money. Money is one of the biggest things that our economy and in society struggle with, and that's where that issue comes into play with economic power, because the economic power is getting the economic power for millennials is probably going to like look. I mean, it's I don't know how it's going to look when I get like 30, 40, 50. It could be worse, could be better. As far as right now, what I've seen for the past few years is that the economic power is getting worse and worse for people that are in like middle class, lower class, poverty line, below poverty line, even upper class is getting affected because they're getting higher taxes and they have to pay more in taxes. I just said the same thing. My apologies. But the 1%, they get more. They get greater benefits pretty much only because they make so much money. If you really want to come down to it, it's because they have so much money, because their money is their power. If they had no money, they'd have no power. So that's how money goes into play with economic power. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed, and those were my slides on how those issues related to the struggle for economic power in the book When We Fight, We Win. It's a great book, and here's the works cited. I can read it aloud. Jobin Leeds, Greg, Adjut Art. When We Fight, We Win, 21st Century Social Movements and the Activists That Are Transforming Our World, The New Press, 2016. And I want to say that I got my cited practices from Owl at Purdue. I get my English teacher, he recommends him. It's basically where you learn all of the new like 8th edition. There's a new 8th edition MLA format for it, and that's where I based my stuff off. You can see that this part right here, the title of the book, is italicized, so just wanted to clarify on that. Alright, well, I hope you have a great day and a great summer, and I hope you enjoy my presentation.